Welcome to the deep dive. Today we have just a fascinating stack of sources from the learner, and they really don't shy away from the biggest questions.
Not at all. We're talking about what is the meaning of life? How do we find, genuine, stable happiness?
Exactly. And the material we looked at it's profound because it offers not just a philosophy, but a very specific, practical blueprint for internal transformation.
And that blueprint really centers on this one core concept they call Sati.
And the hook here is so simple, but it's just deeply provocative. The sources promise that you can fundamentally change your inner world, find that stable fulfillment, simply by just walking.
Right.
So our mission today is to take that idea and just unpack the whole mechanism behind it. How does a simple physical action lead to such a deep internal change?
What stands out immediately, I think, is the clarity of the psychological framework. It gives you these very distinct definitions for two states of human consciousness.
And that's so important.
It is, because it helps you understand not just what stable happiness is, but maybe more importantly, why the joy we usually chase is, inherently unstable.
Okay, let's get right into that then, this internal landscape. The source material uses this really memorable, almost diagrammatic approach. It talks about a black part and a red part of us.
Yeah, let's start with the black part. This is what they call the temporary self, the Jiga.
Which in Western terms, we'd pretty much just call the ego.
Exactly, the ego. And it's critical because it's described as a role, a mask. It's a temporary construct.
It's born from, the combination of your thoughts, your emotions, and your desires.
Right. Shiku, kanju, and so on. It's the part that grows as we gather information from the world. It's tied to the brain.
But its fatal flaw, according to these sources, is that it's fundamentally unstable. It's just constantly influenced by everything happening outside of you.
Constantly shifting. Your needs, your opinions, your happiness. It's all over the place.
It's like a browser tab that just keeps refreshing. You never land on a permanent page. And if you try to live your whole life through this unstable ego,
the result is anxiety, stress, worry, irritation, and what they call delusion, or mushu.
Okay, so that's the black part. What about the red part?
Now, that is in complete contrast. The red part is the true self. This is pure consciousness, which they call Sati.
And Sati is described as being filled with, fundamental truth, wisdom, and this unconditional love, or I.
And crucially, it's stable. It is unchanging. It radiates this light from within, no matter what's going on externally.
But here's the detail that just floored me. For most of us, this true self, this Sati, it only makes up about 1 to 3% of our current awareness.
Right. So in a very real sense, we're operating asleep until this core consciousness is intentionally awakened.
And I'm glad they clarified the term, because Sati is often just translated as mindfulness.
But they insist that's not quite right. The closest meaning for what they're doing is awakening. It's not just paying attention. It's that stable inner consciousness actually coming online.
So if we connect that ego framework to, the bigger picture of life, this is where the law of karma comes in.
Exactly. When the ego is driving, life is governed by karma. And this isn't just about cosmic justice.
No, it's about instability.
That's it. When the ego chases external happiness, money, fame, a relationship, that happiness is conditional. It's always shifting, the hunkasuru, the moment the condition changes.
Happiness vanishes. It never, ever lasts.
And this constant shifting, it comes from a deep internal problem. The sources say that living by the ego creates this profound emptiness inside. An empty space, or kuduka.
They even call it a garbage bin.
Wow. Yeah, it's harsh language.
But it makes a certain kind of sense. If your core is empty, you're always looking for something outside to fill it. This void creates what they call the hungry heart.
An energy shortage. And that shortage is the psychological sickness of endless desire. You crave things far beyond what you actually need.
Because the heart is starved. So we try to fill it with eating or drinking or making more money. But it's doomed to fail.
Because the emptiness is internal. You can't fix an internal problem with an external solution.
And this explains so much about why we feel unfulfilled, why we always need more. It also sheds a pretty harsh light on our relationships.
It really does. The source argues that, marriage, partnerships, even our kids, they become sources of worry and trouble because everyone is living through their unstable ego.
So you're looking for your partner to fill that 100% internal need you have.
Which is impossible, of course. No external person can ever do that. So the moment they fail to meet that infinite need.
Conflict, pain, resentment.
It's a dynamic that's destined to fail. The ego's happiness is conditional. The true self's fulfillment has to be stable and internal.
So, this is where we get to the solution, and this is where the sources get really, really specific. How do we shift from that starving ego to the stable Sati state?
Through meditation. But, as you said, it's not the kind of meditation you might be thinking of.
Right. The core purpose of this Sati meditation is not relaxation.
Not at all. It's about transformation. Hanyo. The goal is nothing less than fundamentally changing the unstable black part into the stable red part.
And they are pretty critical of some common methods. They mention, simple relaxation, repeating mantras.
Or focusing on a candle flame, that kind of thing. They say those methods might bring some temporary calmness.
But it's a calmness within the ego.
That's the key distinction. You might feel peaceful, but if the underlying consciousness hasn't expanded, the ego is still in charge, it's just quiet for a moment, the awakening doesn't happen.
So some masters even call it a waste of time.
It's a strong statement,
Yeah.
but it's because it doesn't lead to that permanent internal change.
Okay, so that's a huge claim. What is it that separates this Sati training from, say, Zen or just simple breath awareness? What's the actual mechanism here?
It all comes down to intensity and a focus on the body's moment-to-moment reality. See, the ego lives on thought, on that Shiko stream.
Right.
Sati meditation introduces an intense, deliberate focus on physical sensation that's designed to completely interrupt that stream of thought.
Which brings us back to the radical simplicity of just walking.
Exactly. The walking meditation, or hokomaisu, you're not just strolling, you are intensely feeling the sensation of the sole of your foot touching the floor. The pressure, the texture, the movement, with absolute undivided attention.
That sounds exhausting, actually, for something so simple.
It is an intensive mental effort, because the goal is to dedicate 100% of your awareness to that single sensation. The mind can't hold the intense detail of the foot sensation and simultaneously worry about a work deadline.
Ah, I see. So the focus sensation starves the ego's thought stream. It acts as a physical anchor for this growing Sati consciousness.
And you gradually expand it. You start with the foot, or with the hand movement meditation, the Shuju Maisu, and you expand that awareness to encompass the entire body.
Until the ego's chatter is just sidelined.
Right. And as you practice consistently, Sati begins to grow. It expands beyond that tiny 1 to 3%. And as it fills the body, it's described as purifying your subconscious thoughts and emotions. A cleansing process they call Jiga.
And the ultimate potential they describe is just huge. You continue this expansion until your Sati awareness expands to what they call the earth level.
Which really raises the question for you, the learner. What is that subjective experience like? What happens when Sati is charged and expanding through you?
Well, the inner state fundamentally changes. It becomes one of absolute sufficiency. Juzoku.
So the craving just disappears.
It disappears because the inner void is finally filled. We're talking about a person who would have zero need to drink alcohol or compulsively shop to manage stress. The problem of meeting more than what's necessary just vanishes.
Because the necessary is fully met from within. And this is tied to Sati being what they call nature's law, or dharma. It's pure, it's natural, and critically, it's unconditional, ujiken.
And that lack of conditionality is everything. Human love is usually conditional. It has labels. My partner, my child, my friend.
Right, there are strings attached.
But Sati love is a fundamental energy shared by all living things. It can't be lost because it doesn't depend on anything outside of you. That's the source of stable happiness.
Now, to get there, the sources point to a really necessary internal step. The ego must actively surrender. It's a step they call samika.
That sounds like a major psychological hurdle. I mean, the ego is the part that thinks it's in charge. It solves problems, it makes decisions. Why does it need to surrender?
Because if the ego remains the leader, Sati can't grow. The ego is built on separation and control. Sati is built on oneness and flow. So this act of reverence isn't about worshiping something outside yourself.
It's about shifting the internal leadership.
Precisely. From the unstable black part to the stable red part. The ego has to finally acknowledge its own temporary, limited nature.
So what does all this mean for how you interact with the world? Beyond your own fulfillment, how does this change how you see things, how you talk to people?
Sati is described as the power to see fundamental truth, or shinri. They say you acquire the eye of the heart. You're no longer just seeing the surface of things with your physical eyes.
You see their essence, their state of constant change and transition.
Exactly. And the most fascinating result of this is the shift in communication. You move from the level of the ego personality words differentiation to the level of Sati.
Which they describe as oneness, or wanisu.
The idea behind wanasu is that even though your physical bodies are separate, your hearts become unified. You're communicating from a place of shared awareness, not separate need.
So communication becomes easy, almost friction-free.
Yeah.
The normal irritation and misunderstandings, they just fade away.
Because there's already an 80% level of understanding before you even speak, words are then just used for specific confirmation, not to try and bridge this huge psychological gap.
And there's a strong emphasis on community here, too.
A very strong emphasis. The sources suggest that Sati can only truly awaken and grow when you are in the company of others who have also awakened Sati. You need that shared, holy space.
So trying to do this alone, surrounded by people living only through the ego,
Is seen as nearly impossible. The environment just can't nurture it.
and the final, completed state of this whole journey is described as the Buddha, or Kakusha, the one who sees the truth, the maximum expansion of Sati.
So we've taken a pretty deep dive here. We've seen the ego as this changing, hungry mask driven by the law of karma, and Sati, the true self, as the stable, pure source of unconditional love within.
And the mechanism to get there, Sati meditation. It's framed as a lifelong, intensive training. It isn't about relaxing, it's about the complete transformation of the unstable ego into the stable true self, by anchoring your mind to physical sensation.
And you are encouraged not just to believe this, but to actually experience that Sati energy inside yourself through practice.
The sources insist that the highest form of communication is oneness, and that Sati growth requires community. So if the path to stable, internal peace means the ego must surrender to the true self, consider this for your own life.
How might your daily interactions change if you consciously chose to engage only in communication that operates from a place of oneness, rather than from the shifting, needy mask of the ego? What conversations would you choose to start or stop today?